Okay, the lesson today, and really to prepare for your exam, is something that I've wanted to talk about for a while and just haven't had the time to do it. Something that you probably kind of understand more by experience than by definition or being able to actually put terms to it, is intervals. Intervals are the distance between two notes, and you can have two kinds of intervals, really. You can have intervals that are harmonic intervals, which would look like this, where you have a note that's right on top of another note, and that would be harmonic. Or you can have melodic intervals. Notice harmonic sounds like harmony, melodic sounds like melody. So melodic intervals that go in this direction, okay? As opposed to playing a chord, you're moving from one note to the next. You are more used to melodic intervals, but in order to teach you how to see intervals, we're going to use harmonic intervals just to teach you how to look at them and what they're called, okay? Alright, so before we talk about intervals too much, we want to talk about steps. And there's two kinds of steps that we have. We have the half step. Try that again. There you go. The half step or semitone. It's the distance from one key on the keyboard or the piano to the next adjacent key. So the key right next to it. So in this example right here, you're moving from key 1, the white key, to the black key, key 2. It's a half step since they are next to each other. I think you know that. I have talked about that before. At least some of you should know that. A half step is not always from a white key to a black key. In this example, key 1 to key 2 are still next to each other. So the tricky ones are between E and F and B and C, okay, where there's no black key. And so the distance between those two is still a half step because there's no key in between them. The other kind of step that we have is called a whole step, or a whole tone, or simply tone, is the same distance as two half steps. So two half steps together makes a whole step. Makes sense. Half and a half makes a whole. Okay? So for here it would be key 1 to key 3 is the whole step. The half steps being 1 to 2 and another one 2 to 3. Okay? But the whole step would be 1 to 3. On the piano it's usually like white key to the white key next to it, or black key to a black key next to it, unless you're talking between E and F and B and C like I just said. Okay? So just to kind of sum up that, your half steps are immediate adjacent keys, and a whole step is two half steps put together. Okay? An interval, so the word interval, measures the distance between two notes. Okay? It's the distance between two notes. That's the part I really want you to know. We will first discuss generic intervals, which are measured on the staff. When two notes occupy the same line or space, they are a first or a prime apart. So you can either call it first or prime. I don't care if you call it a prime, just call it a first. So C to C is an interval of a first, meaning there's no movement at all. It's the same note. Okay? I guess I should take a second and explain really quick. When you're talking about moving in music, you either have step motion or jumping motion. And a step motion is going from one note to the next note. But you can have two different kinds of steps, a half step or a whole step. That's where the whole step thing came from. Other than that, it's a jump, okay? Like going from A to C or A to E. We'll first discuss generic intervals, which are measured on the staff. I already said that, prime, okay? D to D and E to E are also firsts. I think that makes sense to most of you. Accidentals are ignored when measuring generic intervals. Only staff positions matter. So it doesn't matter if it's a sharp or a flat right now when we're talking generic. It will when we get to specific. But when we talk generic, it's just how far away they are. It has nothing to do with flats or sharps. Okay? So this is still a first, this is still a first, this is still a first. Alright? As the notes become further apart on the staff, the interval type increases. So C to D, or D to E, or E to F are all called seconds. Now, the way my teacher in college taught us to do it is put your pencil on the bottom note and count that as 1, and then move to the next note, alternating, then move to the next note, alternating line, space, line, space, line, space, which you'll see what I do there in just a minute, and keep counting, and whatever you get to, that's how far it is apart. So in this case, it would be 1, 2, and that's a second. C to E, D to F, and E to G are all thirds. So for example, and they're showing you the melodic and the harmonic version. But the third would be start on the bottom note, 1, 2, 3. Or in this case, 1, 2, 3. Or 1, 2, 3. So you always start on 1 on the first note. Notice that the thirds will always share the same staff position type, either both on a line or both on a space. That's the quickest way to recognize that you're playing a third or moving a third, is that they're both going to be on a line or they're both going to be on a space. Okay, there's the first again. Okay. I must have copied the wrong one because it skipped over fourths. Yeah, okay, so a fourth is like, this is a fifth, but so a fifth would be from C to G, from D to A, or from E to B. Just like a third, a fifth will also share line, line, space, space, and if I were to count it up, it would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's how I know I'm on a fifth. Other than the fact by just looking at the fact that they share spaces or lines, and you'll get used to just being able to recognize them. A fourth, though, would be one lower, so it would be like C to F, or D to G, or E to A. I think it's making sense. It's not that complicated. Sixths are a sixth apart, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you'll notice, just like a fourth, they alternate. So if the bottom's on a line, the top's going to be on a space. Or if the bottom's on a space, the top one's going to be on a line. Sevenths share line, line, space, space. Okay? And if I were to count it up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? And an eighth, otherwise known as an octave. Okay, so if I say an octave higher, it's an 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And just like the sixth and the fourth, if the bottom one's on a line, the top one's on a space. Or if the bottom one's on a space, the top one's on a line. Okay? A quick way to count when you get them this far away is to start on 1 and go 1, 3, 5, 7, and then one more is 8. Does that make sense? 1, 3, 5, 7, and then one more is 8. So just alternate. Or 1, 3, 5 if it's a fifth, or 1, 3, 5, 7 if it's a seventh, okay? That's the quick way to count. Use this chart to reference generic intervals. So this chart right here, I'll try to make sure I have a hard copy of that chart as well for you, because it's just nice to see what they look like. Those are obviously starting on a C. You could have a second that starts on an F to a G, or you could have a third that starts on an A to a C. You know what I mean? I can't draw them very well with using this app, but they don't have to start on a C. This just kind of helps you see what they look like. And you can go past 8. You can have a 9th, a 10th, an 11th, a 12th. You can keep going, okay? Specific intervals, so that was generic, so now we're on to specific intervals, are measured both on the staff and in half steps on the keyboard. So as you learned in the previous lesson, C to D and C to D flat are both generic seconds. But specifically, C to D is 1/2 step larger than C to D flat. Okay, so do we all remember that flats go a 1/2 step down, sharps go a 1/2 step up? All right, so obviously C to D flat is going to be a 1/2 step smaller than C to D. And they're going to show you this right here, okay? The C is right here, okay? The D flat is right here. See how it's smaller than the C to the D? The C to the D flat is 1/2 step. The C to the D flat is a 1/2 step. The C to the D is a whole step, okay? So a major second is made up of 2 1/2 steps, like C to D. C to D is a major second since it's generic second on the staff and 2 1/2 steps on the keyboard. Generic second on the staff, 2 1/2 steps on the keyboard makes a major second. E to F sharp would be another example of a major second because you're messing with that E to F area where there's no black key. Okay? So it's good to know what the piano looks like to know, or just memorize that E to F is going to be funky. Okay? A major third is made up of 4 1/2 steps. So C to E is a major third. 1, 2, 3. Sorry, there's C. Hang on, let me back up for you. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 1/2 steps to make the major third. E to G sharp is also a major third, right? So here's E. 1, 2, 3, 4. A perfect fourth is made up of 5 1/2 steps. The easiest way to know that it's a perfect fourth, notice that we don't say major, we say perfect for fourths, okay? Perfect fourth is that it's a fourth, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that the accidentals are balanced. There's balanced accidentals. Balanced meaning if the bottom one was sharp, the top one would have to be sharp as well for it to be perfect, okay? F to B flat is also a perfect fourth. 1, 2, 3, 4. A perfect fifth is made up of 7 1/2 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Same thing, okay? It's a fifth apart, and the accidentals are balanced. That's how we know it's perfect. So, a one step, okay, or a unison, when you have both notes on the same line, is going to be called perfect. So it's going to be a perfect unison, a perfect fourth, a perfect fifth, and a perfect eighth. Those are your perfects, okay? Everything else is major, minor. But unison, fourths, fifths, and eighths will be called perfect, okay? B to F sharp is also perfect. Now notice that these accidentals are not balanced, but it's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 1/2 steps apart. The reason why they're not balanced is because of this right here. Because of that B, between B and C and E and F, there's no black key. So you just have to remember, if you're dealing with B and F, when you're trying to do fifths and fourths, okay? If you're dealing with B and F, just remember that's your combination that's tricky. The accidentals will not be balanced. If they're balanced, it'll be wrong, okay? In order for it to be perfect. This is a lot of information I'm throwing at you, okay? A major sixth is made up of 9 1/2 steps. C to A would be a major sixth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 1/2 steps. And as you count, 1, 3, 5, 7, or 1, 3, 5, 6, sorry, major 6, and we know it's major because of how many 1/2 steps are in it, okay? The other way you can tell if it's major, for those of you that will understand this, if the top note is in the same key signature as the bottom note, it'll be major. Okay, so let's say this is B flat, and I want to do major 6. So 1, 3, 5, 6 would be G. Okay, in the key of B flat when I play a B flat scale. That's my bottom note. So when I play a B flat scale, do I play a G flat, or a G sharp? I play a G. Okay, when my instrument starts on a B flat. Okay, not concert B flat, but when you actually play a scale where you start on a B flat, or if you were to sing when Do is B flat, G is not flat or sharp in a major scale. It's natural. So B flat to G would be your major 6. That's a little bit more advanced than some of you will be able to handle right now. E flat to C is also a major 6. That's what I'm talking about. C is in the key of when you start on an E flat in your scale. So that's how we know it's major. And if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, or 9, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, that's why, because it screwed me up. It's the E flats up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There we go. I'm looking at their 1 and not the note that they're starting on right there with the arrow. E flat to C is also a major 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. C is in the key, is what would be in the scale if we started on an E flat. I'm going to try to pause this. Okay, I'm back. I hit pause because I had to do something, and now I'm back, and I'm in a hotel room at the Michigan Music Conference. I thought I was going to come right back, but anyways, the next thing we're looking at here is a major 7th, which is made up of 11 half steps. So like C to B is a major 7th. So if you could count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or you could do 1, 3, 5, 7, and notice it's line to line, and then you can count them up if you really wanted to find where 11 half steps would get you. Okay. D to C sharp is also a major 7th. That's because you've got 1, 3, 5, 7, and C sharp is in the scale when you're starting on a D. And this is an octave. And as I said earlier, unisons, fourths, fifths, and octaves are the perfect intervals. See if I can spell perfect right. The noise in the back room is great. The background is Grace's cell phone, if you can hear that. The terms major and perfect refer to the interval's quality. So you have quantity and quality, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, but then the quality is major or perfect. Only seconds, thirds, sixths, and sevenths. Seconds, thirds, sixths, and sevenths can have major qualities. First, fourth, fifth, and eighths are perfect. Next, let's discuss minor intervals. A minor interval has one less half step than a major interval. So, the easiest way to find a minor interval is to find the major one first and then take it down a half step if you're asked to find one. If you're trying to see if it's minor, you would go off the bottom note, figure out what the major would be, and then if it's a half step lower, you know it's minor. For example, C to E is a major third, which is 4 half steps, but C to E flat is a minor third, which is 3 half steps. So if you look here, the major third would be C to E, but we know an E flat's a half step lower, so it's a minor third. Now the tricky thing comes in, and I'm going to say this, some of you will understand it, some of you won't right now, okay? But what note is enharmonic with E flat? Here's an E flat. When you're coming from the E, it's going to be flat because you're moving to the left. But it's also called a D sharp if you're going right. Now down here, if we went from C to D, C to D sharp, not very good, but anyways, if we went from C to D sharp, that's not a third anymore. You're moving a second, okay? And it's sharp, so you would call that, you don't have to remember this, but you would call it augmented. It's 1/2 step higher than major. But it would be a second now because it's, even though it's the same pitch, it's written like a second. E to G is also a minor third, since E to G sharp is major, because you play a G sharp when you start on an E when you play your scale. And so E to G is minor. The other way is to count the half steps. 1, 2, 3. Since minor intervals transform from major intervals, only seconds, thirds, sixths, and sevenths can be minor. Then it goes on to talk about augmented and diminished. We're not going to go into that right now. I just want to focus on perfect, major, and minor. But here are the intervals for each step, first, a second, a third, a fourth, or each interval. Here are the steps for each interval. So if you want to know how many half steps are in a perfect fourth, then you would find the fourth and look at perfect, and it shows you how many half steps. There's 5. And that chart is in the packet I filled out. I'm also going to make that packet accessible to you online, but really it's already accessible to you to you online if you go to musictheory.net. That's where I got all this stuff from, was musictheory.net, and you can also go there and do some practicing, which Miss Pratt's going to do with you in just a minute. So here's some more examples. You have to look at your key signature, okay? Because that will tell you they don't always put an accidental beside it. But for here, this is, and you got to look at your clef, okay? It's bass clef, so good boys deserve fudge always. So the bottom line's a G, F, E. That's on the E line, and it's a 1, 3, 5, 6. Okay, so now we have to say, is there a C or a C sharp if we start on an E? And there's a C sharp. Some of you know that, some of you don't. Or you can count the half steps, okay? And we know it's a 6, so we could say, how many, let's look at our 6th line here. And I'm either going to have, we're talking minor and major, so I'm either going to have 8 or 9. So you'd have to be able to draw the piano. And I've shown you that before, but if you do that, I'm going to draw a bunch of lines. And then, I'm going to use a different color for fun. But then pick 2 and shade them in. And then skip 1, and then you got a group of 3. Skip 1, you got a group of deuce. Skip 1, you got a group of 3, and keep doing that. To the left of the group of 2 is a C. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E. You can keep going. So we're starting on an E, and we're going up to a C. Okay? Let's get another color so that it's a little bit easier to see. Yellow. Okay. So here we go. We're on an E. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So since it's 8 half steps and not 9, we know that it is a minor 6. Over here, let's count it up to find out what the quantity is. 1, 3, 5, 7. We got 1 sharp, so this is actually an F sharp. And at first, if you need to write it out, just to remind yourself, you can to go step by step. And then the bottom one, that's on the G line, so that's a G. So we're going from a G to an F sharp. We know it's a 7th. Now we just got to figure out if it's major or minor. Most of us know that when we start on a G, there's going to be an F sharp in the scale, so you would know it's a major 7th. If you don't know that, you got to draw the piano again. I'm just going to take you back and do a different color here. This thing's getting well loved. Okay, here we go. So G to F sharp. So this would be an F, and up here the black key would be an F sharp, okay? So we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And here's our sevenths, and an 11 is major. So it's a major seventh. Only a couple more examples, okay? This is bass clef. We got 2 flats. So this is a G to a B flat. And 1, 3, we know it's a third. Now we have to decide, is it major or minor? We know that when we start on a G, we play B naturals. So since it's a half step lower, it would be a minor third. Or you can count up the half steps if you want to draw the piano up. I'm going to try to speed it up a little bit. This is, right off the bat, you should be able to see space to space with a space in the middle, so it's a fifth. Or you can count 1, 3, 5. That's the quick way to count it. And it goes from an E up to a B. And it's a fifth, and the way to know, unless you're dealing with a combination of F and B, which we're not, just make sure your accidentals are balanced. We're not dealing with an F sharp, so don't worry about that. Accidentals are balanced, therefore it is a perfect fifth. This is a D to an E flat. It's obviously a second because they're right next to each other. And when you start on D and you go up the scale, a D flat is not in the key signature, so it is a minor second. It'd be a D, or it'd be D. When you're playing the scale, it'd be D E. So he's a half step lower. That's how we know it's minor. Or D up to an E flat is 1 half step, so we know it's a minor second. That's the smallest interval we can have. Well, besides a unison. Then you're just on the same note. Alrighty, this is a B to a C, and if you look on the piano, in between B and C, there's no black key. So it's a half step, so we know that also would have to be a minor second. This is, if you look at it, is a line to a space. So 1, 3 plus 1 more is 4. So you know it's a fourth. Nothing in the key signature. An F to a B flat. Uh-oh. We're doing that F-B combination. So the accidentals, in order for it to be perfect, the accidentals need to not be balanced. You either have to have a B flat or an F sharp. And since we have a B flat, we know it's a perfect fourth. That F-B combination with the fourths and the fifths is tough. This is a D to a D. No question, that is a perfect octave. And that's all for today. And I don't say that lightly. I know you're probably bored out of your mind. But I really want you to be able to try to understand intervals. Quick recap. You can have any interval you want, 1 through as big of a jump as you want. But we have 2 kinds of motion. We have steps and we have jumps. We have 2 kinds of steps, a half step or a whole step. And these different types of movement make intervals, either melodic intervals used for melodies, or harmonic intervals used for harmonies. And really, it's just space between 2 notes. How far apart are they? We have seconds, thirds, 6 and 7ths that are either going to be major, big M, or minor, small m. Or we have firsts, fourths, fifths, and octaves, which are called perfect. We also have augmented and diminished, fully diminished, half diminished. We're not going to go into that stuff, okay? But we also learned that a sharp raises a half step and a flat lowers a half step. Okay. You've got the chart that shows you how many half steps, so that you don't have to memorize that right now. And we also talked about how to draw the piano. So in case you need that again, it looks like this. There's my purple piano. If you just start on a C, just get yourself used to starting on C. Okay. Hold on here. Okay, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, keeps going. And then since you started on a C, you can, the first line that you have, we'll use green because we haven't used that much. You shade it in, you do a group of 2, skip 1, group of 3, skip 1, group of 2, skip 1, group of 3, and it could keep going, okay? So, there's your lesson on intervals. We'll see how it went. Mrs. Pratt, or Miss Pratt, not Mrs. yet, Miss Pratt is going to go through some exercises, and she's just going to do one, and then pick someone, and then she'll click on it and see if you're right, and it'll show you what percentage you get as a class, and then hopefully you understand something you didn't before.